is up, party people? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a while since I posted. I'm not gonna lie, my life has been a bit stressful. Kind of have a lot going on. Oh my god. Yeah, my life has been pretty crazy, hence the lack of videos. As you can see by these moving boxes, oh, that's my bra. I am currently in the process of moving to a new apartment, which is literally always a stressful thing in New York City, but this is my second go around, so I am going to be telling you all of the things that you should know before moving into a new apartment in New York City. The market here is very different from any other place, so let's get into it. All right, you guys, I cracked out the notebook. That's how you know I've got things to say, is when I have my notes. So the number one thing that you should know about moving in New York City is that New York is fast. Fast, fast, fast. Faster than any other city in America, at least, that I have seen. The typical turnaround for a lease is 3 days. Basically, you go to see the apartment, you like it, you put your application and your deposit down ASAP. And I do mean ASAP. You get word on whether or not you're approved within 1 to 3 days. 3 days being the max, and then it's yours. So it's very fast. And the thing about it, the thing that makes it so stressful is that listings are not even really posted until about a month before move-in. If you want to move into an apartment September 1st, like I am, September 1st move-ins are not going to be listed anywhere until like the last week or so of July. So you don't have a lot of time. You really have to be prepared so that you can hit the ground running, because the market is very competitive here. If you see something that you like I mentioned before, you snatch it or it's gone by the end of the day, if not by the end of the week. And so my tip for dealing with the fast turnaround is to know your deal breakers. Know your deal breakers going into it. You don't have time to dawdle and compare and do like,
oh, well, I like this apartment, but I'm supposed to see another one in a couple of days, and I just want to see both so I can do my Venn diagram.
Girl, ain't nobody got time. Because by the time you wait 3 days to see the other apartment, the one that you liked, it's gone. So you have to be prepared to make a choice in that moment. And the way that you can do that is to know right off the bat what you will say yes or no to. You don't want to see a million apartments that you know you're not going to say yes to, and then in the meantime, you lose out on an apartment that you really do want because you're wasting your time on all of these apartments that you already know are not going to work out for you. So example, my personal deal breakers are: I will not live in a building that does not have an elevator. The only exception that I will make is a first, second, or third floor walk-up. Anything higher than the third floor without an elevator, no. Especially after breaking my ankle and having an injury, having an elevator was a lifesaver. I cannot even imagine how horrible it would have been to walk up 5 flights of steps with a broken ankle. How would I do that? An elevator is one of those things. It's kind of like insurance. You don't think it's a big deal, but when you need it, baby, you need it. So I refuse to do 6th, 5th, 4th floor walk-ups. No, ma'am. Another deal breaker that I personally have is 420. Unfortunately, I'm just keeping it real. Most young people in New York are obsessed with 420. Especially, I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but especially in Brooklyn, like every listing that I was looking at was like, we smoke 420 all day, you have to be cool with that. Let me just make it be known, like I personally do not have a moral issue with 420, like that's not what it is, but I do have a sensitivity to the smell. And so, you know, do I really want to live in an apartment where I have to plug my nose all day, every day, because it smells like reefer? My things smell like reefer. My room smells like reefer, even though I'm not smoking. Like, that would be miserable for me. And I know that about myself. So if everybody in the apartment smokes every day, then that is not going to be a compatible living situation. Another deal breaker that I have is couples refuse. I refuse to live with couples. And here's why. Now, I'm sure there are couples that do not fit this bill. Sorry that I threw the baby out with the bathwater. But by and large, here's one of my things about couples is oftentimes they will want to split the bills 50-50, even though they are 2/3. So if it is a 3-bedroom apartment and it's a couple and me, that is 2 people out of the 3. How is that 50-50? That is not 50-50, okay? You are not literally attached by osmosis. You are not one person. You are 2 people using 2 people's resources. So why am I paying half the bill? I'm not. Another thing is that, you know, all couples fight. It's a thing. Like, you spend enough time with somebody and it's just gonna happen. You know, it's inevitable. Do I want to listen to y'all screaming back and forth about baby daddy this, baby mama that? No. Do I want to listen to y'all having sex every day? No. It just, not for me. Yeah, so those are my deal breakers. And because I know that hard and fast, I can just go down the list and be like, nope, 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 nope. And you know, it just makes my life easier. It makes my search more streamlined so that I can focus my attention and increase my chances of getting the apartments that I actually do want. Another thing to think about is to just be prepared. Like I mentioned, New York is lightning fast. You don't have time to fuck around. You just don't, because other people will snatch it out from under you. Until the deposit is paid and your application is approved and your first month of rent is down, anyone can snatch that apartment at any time. Even if you are approved, if you have not put down your deposit and your first month's rent even, someone else can outbid you and snatch the apartment even though the leasing office already approved your application. So you have to be on it. And with that being said, here are the things that you will almost always need to sign a lease in New York City. One is proof of income. You will need to prove that you make 40 times the rent of the entire apartment. Now, if you have roommates, then that is going to be combined. So let's say I'm looking at a 4-bedroom. That means combined, each of the roommates' income needs to add up to 40 times the total rent. However, a good rule of thumb to avoid being severely rent burdened is to make 40 times your individual share of the rent. So, for example, if you're looking at an apartment that costs $800 a month times 40, I think that puts you in the like $36,000 range per year. So you need to have proof of that income. You need pay stubs. You also, if you don't make 40 times the rent, before I move on to the next thing, you can have what's called a guarantor. Basically, it's kind of like a cosigner. They will vouch for you and put their like financials on the line for you if you cannot prove that you make 40 times the rent. However, the catch with a guarantor is that they have to make 80 times the rent. That's a lot of money. So if you know that you don't have proof of income or that you don't make enough income on your own, these are the things that you need to start figuring out now. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot to arrange. So be figuring this stuff out now. Moving on, you have proof of income. You also need proof of employment. Most people are going to ask for a letter from your current employer. Personally, I saved the email with my job offer, and so that's what I send. It has my salary and it's signed with like a letterhead from someone at the company. Anything that is like solid proof that you have a job and that you currently work there, you need. You will also need the application fee ready. Some people will have a bit of flexibility on how you need to pay it, but a lot of companies here are old school, so I recommend bringing your checkbook. I had to put down a check for the apartment that I'm moving into, so it's best to be prepared. Everybody is not with it in this digital age. You will also need generally your last 2 tax returns. Again, that's another thing that can take some time to obtain, so you need to have that. You need to have a proof of your current lease. Now, if you are not on a lease, currently I am subletting, so I didn't have like a lease from a rental company, but I did have a sublease agreement, which, sidebar, if you are subletting, always get something in writing. Period. I do not care if they're your best friend. I do not care if it is your husband. Get something in writing to prove this is the provisions of this living arrangement. This is what I owe. This is what happens if I need to move out. Anything that you could possibly think of, go ahead and get it done. Just have it in writing, because you'll be kicking yourself in the ass if you ever need it and you don't have it. It's just one of those things. Get it in writing. Going along with that, they oftentimes will also ask for proof of bills in your name, particularly the utilities. Again, this is the importance of having sublet agreements in writing. I don't pay the bills under my name. I give my share of the money to the leaseholder. And so, because I had proof, written proof of my sublease agreement, I was able to back that claim up. However, if you are currently already on a lease, you're going to need stubs of bills that you have currently paid. Again, that's something that's going to take time to procure. This is the importance of doing it ahead of time. Another thing that you will need is good credit. They are going to run a credit check on you. So just know that. Again, if you got doo-doo credit, you might want to look at having a guarantor. Another thing to think about when it comes to that, though, is because the market moves so fast and because it is pretty easy for housing to fall through, sometimes people will apply to a million bajillion apartments. Keep in mind, every time they run a credit check, your score is going to dip. So you want to be cautious of applying to a million apartments because your score is going to look lower than it normally is. And those other people are also going to see that you applied to a million bajillion apartments. And sometimes that can look suspicious, like, oh, they can't get approved anywhere. Like, it's just, you got to be careful with that. You got to dance the line. I think I would only recommend to apply to like 2 or 3 places tops. Give yourself enough time to hear back from them, and if all 3 of those places fall through, then you can apply for more. So that is all of the paperwork. Like I said, New York is fast. Be prepared, moral of the story. Number 2 is how to read a listing. If there's nothing else that you take from this video about New York City apartments, there is always a catch. Always. Here are some things to look out for when you are looking at apartment listings. The word cozy. A cozy room with lots of sunlight. A cozy apartment in prime What's a trendy and prime Dumbo? Cozy is code word for small AF. When I say small, the sky is the effing limit when it comes to New York. Small could literally mean no kitchen, no bed, like literally. Cozy is basically code word for twin bed. So if you're fine with a twin bed, then cozy is for you. If you don't want to sleep on a futon, skip it. That is like an automatic. If I see the word cozy, scroll. Steps away, air quotes. It is just steps away from the laundromat. Steps away from Central Park. Steps away from the Express. Steps away, like basically any measurement of distance that somebody gives you, you can go ahead and add like 5 to 10 minutes. So if something is steps away, it really means blocks away. It's 5 blocks from the subway. If something is 5 minutes away, it really is 10 minutes away. If something is 10 to 15 minutes away, if somebody like openly admits that it's a 15-minute walk to the subway, just forget it. Unless you have a car, just forget it. It's too far. It's not worth it. If you see keywords that say like, not the gentrified part, like urban, gritty, like all that stuff, double check the neighborhood, sis. I'm not trying to be rude, but sometimes the reason that an area has not been gentrified is because it is like legitimately dangerous. That being said, like you hear it all the time, like, oh, New York is so safe, New York is so safe, go back to Kansas if you're scared. Like, yeah, New York is generally pretty safe, but there are some areas, particularly, honestly, in each of the boroughs, there are particular areas, you know, I would caution. I don't even know if I want to say certain neighborhoods because I already know I'm going to get roasted. If you want to know, then I guess just like send me a message and I can give you my opinions. But just double check the neighborhoods. Double check. And that kind of goes into my other point, is to look up the price versus the location. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is, especially since a lot of the time people will like fudge what neighborhood it really is. Like I was looking on Craigslist and I saw, I think it was like $800 or something. It was like $800 prime Upper West Side. And then you click on the listing and it is clearly Harlem. Like not even on the cusp of the Upper West Side. It is like Harlem. Or like I looked at another apartment, it was $800 in Williamsburg, prime Williamsburg. Now to be fair, that listing was true. It was in Williamsburg. It was in South Williamsburg. It was right next to the elevated train. This is what I mean. There's always a catch. There's always a catch. So you really need to do your due diligence on it. Another thing that I will caution against, especially in this pandemic era, you know, you are seeing lots of promotions on like apartments and on rent. I would caution you to read the fine print. Do not just sign off on a number because it looks good. Make sure you understand the lease that you are signing. A lot of what you will see is net effective rent. You know, they will put in big bold letters, 6 months free. Okay, maybe not 6 months, but like 3 months free. And you're like, dope. And it'll be in a super nice area of town too. It'll be like 3 months free in prime Midtown or like prime Lower East Side or something like that. And so you're like, oh, sweet, I'm going to sign this. However, you do not actually technically have like free rent. Net effective is kind of complicated to explain. Basically, how it works is they will offer a set amount of months free. So let's just say they offer 3 months free. Let's say the gross rent is $2,000 a month. So $2,000 times 3, that's a $6,000 discount. So instead of just having you like waive the rent for 3 months, what they're gonna do is they divide your $6,000 discount by 12 months in a year, and then they will subtract that number from your rent each month. You're paying rent every month, you're just paying a reduced amount. So just know that, like, if they say 3 months free, like, you're not gonna live in the Upper East Side for free. You're still paying rent, it's just reduced. Another thing to realize about net effective is that it generally is only good for the first year on your lease. Now that the city is starting to pick up, a lot of people are finding themselves in this predicament where they signed on to a super sweet deal, and then the first year is up and their rent goes back to the original price of $2,500 a month, and now they can't afford it and they have to find a new place. So, don't be woo-wooed by these headlines. Make sure you understand what you're signing off to. Another thing to look for is broker fees. A lot of the times, especially on Facebook, you will see like real estate agents and brokers listing apartments. Make sure you ask if there's a fee, because they are not always upfront about it, but brokers' fees are nothing to sneeze at. It usually is equivalent to the first month's rent. So you put down your deposit, and you put down your first month's rent, and you basically pay a second rent for a broker. The advantage of a broker is that they generally have access to nicer apartments. They can get your foot in the door easier. However, you do pay for that. Another thing to look out for is roommate matching. I see this a lot on the apps. I saw this on Spare Room. I see it on Roomie. It is where someone who is with a company will advertise an open room in an apartment, but they already have the other 3 roommates lined up. And so basically it's kind of like a blind date where they screen you and they try to pair you with roommates that you're compatible with. Personally, I don't know about that. I'm not a huge fan. I like being able to talk to my potential roommates up front. Also, that's another thing that's going to come with a fee. So you want to make sure that you ask for that. Another thing to be cautious of with both the brokers and the roommate matching is bait and switch. A lot of the times they will list these really nice apartments and then you send a message and they're like, oh darn, that apartment is gone. But let me show you these other apartments and it's nothing like what you want. Run. Just run. It's a waste of your time. Now, when it comes to the actual physical apartment, there are also some things you need to look for. Basically, what it chalks up to is most of the buildings in New York City are very old, especially, honestly, in all of the boroughs. A lot of them are pre-war. So these are like 100-plus-year-old apartment buildings. There are things that you're going to want to look for, such as the water pressure, especially in the showers and the kitchen sinks, the water temperature. How long does it take for the water to get hot? Does it get hot at all? Does the heating go out often? You'll also want to make sure that the outlets actually work. You'll want to check the Wi-Fi signal. I will say that is a problem we have in this apartment. It literally, there's no reason that a 3-bedroom should have awful Wi-Fi, but the signal does have a hard time getting to my room. Another thing to think about in New York, pests. Pests are a huge problem. I don't know where you come from, but where I come from, you don't have roaches unless you are like filthy, filthy, filthy. Here in New York though, because it is so densely populated and because it is so dirty and like there's like restaurants and just a lot of food and things that attract pests, it's kind of a way of life. It's just a reality. Roaches, bed bugs, mice, those are like the top 3 that you need to look out for. Now you can look for signs of roaches in the cabinets. Check the hinges of the cabinets. Check under the cabinets for like dead roaches, for roach droppings. Mice as well. Look under the cabinets, look in dark kind of like shady corners for droppings, for any kind of signs of like chewing. Bed bugs are a little bit harder to know. Unfortunately, there are like registries online and where you can check reports of bed bugs. Other than that, I highly recommend getting a mattress cover. I highly recommend also getting your own mattress, any kind of soft furniture. Just be very, very, very careful. Another word to the wise about apartment shopping in New York. This is like the most true advice that I have ever been given. And I can't even remember where I got it from, but it's true. You can only ever have two of the three. Good price, good location, good size. You can only pick two. And the reason that I say this is that yes, there are, again, know your deal breakers. Like, don't just sign on to anything. However, you also want to be mindful of not shooting yourself in the foot and losing out on good apartments because you're being too picky. Like my current apartment, for instance, great location, very convenient location. The price is okay, it's fine. However, the size, we don't have a living room. You walk into an apartment and it's just our bedrooms and the kitchen and the bathroom, and that's it. Likewise with the apartment in Williamsburg that I looked at, convenient location, however, or great price. Convenient location, great price. However, again, you only get two of the three. The size. I walked in there and it literally was a freaking Polly Pocket house. So you have to figure out, pick two of the three to prioritize, but it's very rare for you to find an absolutely perfect apartment that scratches off everything on your list. Lastly, some other things to ask about. Just because, again, most of these apartment buildings in New York are very old, the amenities that you would have in an apartment anywhere else are not necessarily a given here. So you do want to check whether or not they have laundry either in the unit or in the building. A lot of apartments do not have laundry. Me personally, I have white bedding, and so it is important to me to have laundry either closely accessible or in the building because this stuff has to be laundered once a week. An elevator. I already went on my spiel. An elevator is not a given. A dishwasher is not a given. A lot of apartments do not have dishwashers. If you know yourself, you hate doing dishes, you're gonna let them pile up in the sink and get roaches rather than do your dishes every single day, you're probably gonna want an apartment that has a dishwasher. Some other things are you wanna see how active the super is. A lot of buildings will have a live-in super, meaning that they live in the basement typically. However, not every apartment does, so you do want to ask how attentive the super is. Again, these apartments are old, things break down, you're gonna need good access to a super. Another thing that I would check is subway access. Again, I went on this rant earlier. Especially as an actor, just consider once auditions pick up, what is your commute to Midtown? Because that's where everything is. If you have to take a 15-minute walk to get everywhere every day, it's going to add up. It adds up. Also look at the location in terms of your amenities. Do you have a good grocery store nearby? Do you have a pharmacy? If you have children, do you have a good school? Stuff to think about. Again, with location, what else is it next to? Is it next to a meth clinic? Is it next to the PJs? Is it next to a hospital? Is it next to a school? All of those things are going to affect the environment, and you just want to make sure you know what you're going into. Just know what you're going into. Know your deal breakers. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, so basically, if I were to sum it up, my main tips for apartment shopping in New York are: number one, to be prepared, have your shit ready to go ASAP. And number 2, to just do your due diligence. Always see an apartment before you put any money down. Always. I mean, that should be common sense, but especially in New York, always see it in person. Your living situation is important. It's really important that you make an informed choice, and by being prepared, you will give yourself the time to fully weigh out your options and spring for an apartment that is going to work for your lifestyle, so that hopefully you don't have to move again. Okay, you guys, that's pretty much all that I have to say. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to drop them in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe to my videos, you guys. Follow me on Instagram. That's it. Gotta go. Bye.